Na zile vitu tarudia kuna Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Hello, hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, you guys, I hope you guys are getting me well.
Yes, we are.
Okay. We are starting our discussion in a short while. Eh? So last time I was going through valuation models, if I remember, I talked about valuation of debentures and valuation of preference shares. Eh? And I sent you a recorded video on valuation of ordinary shares. I asked you to listen to the video. There are just a few things that I wanted to talk about on that aspect, perhaps to clarify some issues which might not be very, very clear. I also sent you some notes and a recorded video on cost of capital. I believe you have been going through. Next class, I think I will embark on that, again, to clarify on any areas which are not very clear. I hope that you guys are going through cost of capital. I gave you some notes and I gave you a recorded video. So I'll find time to answer at least a question, isn't it? To answer some at least questions on that so that anything that is not clear perhaps can be clear. Then there is an area on ratio analysis and forecasting. I know I'd given you some notes on ratio analysis and forecasting. That's the last thing we'll be doing. Once I'm done with valuation models today, then next class, We summarize on cost of capital. Then from there is ratio analysis and forecasting. I know my colleague has been going through working capital management, and I can see you have been moving on well. If there are issues which you think were not very clear on working capital management, I think we shall give you time to perhaps clarify. I hope you guys, I can see Mwalimu is moving on well with you on the area of working capital management, management of inventory, management of cash, management of debtors, working capital operating cycles, working capital financing policies. Those are very, very important things. Please try. Okay, so today I want to mention something on management. Valuation of ordinary shares. Last class I talked about valuation of ventures, redeemable debentures, and convertible debentures. I went through, also talked about valuation of preference shares. I just want to clarify some issues on the valuation of. Kama kuna watoto mahali, ni vizuri kumute tu. Badala watoto watupigie kelele. I think it is proper if you guys mute yourself. So, ordinary shares are valued using various models.
Okay.
Where's mute? Yeah, where's mute? Okay, last class, I informed you guys that valuation of ordinary shares is done using a number of models. There are many models, which I've already shared with you in the handouts and in the video. There are a number of models, which I cannot talk about all of them today, because already you have them in your handouts. But I wish to mention about 5 of these models. One of the models used to value ordinary shares is known as net asset basis. The net asset basis valuation model. Let me say that net asset basis is an asset-based valuation model. This is an asset-based valuation approach. These valuation models are classified into 2 categories broadly. We have asset-based models and we have income-based models. Equity valuation models are those ones which are asset-based, and there are those ones which are income-based. Now, net asset basis is an asset-based valuation model. It is an asset-based valuation model where we value ordinary shares at the use of book values. This approach involves valuing of ordinary shares by the use of book values. Now, we usually establish what we call book value per share. We usually establish what we refer to as book value per share. When you use a net asset basis approach, we establish what we call book value per share. And how do you arrive at this book value per share? We arrive at book value per share by looking at all non-current assets. Non-current assets are the ones which we refer to as fixed assets. You go to your balance sheet, or rather your statement of financial position, and check all fixed assets at their net book value, the total fixed assets at the net book value. You add all current assets, then you deduct current liabilities, you deduct long-term liabilities, you deduct preference share capital. Notice preference share, not the dividend. Deduct preference share capital, and then divide these by the number of issued ordinary shares. The number of issued ordinary shares. I think in the notes which I gave you, I have worked out the illustration on this. Yeah, so you check fixed assets at the net book value, plus all current assets, remove current liabilities, remove long-term liabilities, remove preference share capital, and divide by the number of issued ordinary shares. That shall give you what we refer to as book value per share. As simple as that. Now, one thing that you need to appreciate is that when you deduct all this, when you take fixed assets plus current assets and remove all that, what you are left with is ordinary share capital plus reserves. If you look at your statement of financial position, or sometimes what we simply call a balance sheet, you can confirm that if you take all assets and remove current liabilities, remove long-term liabilities, remove preference share capital, and divide by the number of issued ordinary shares, what you are left with is ordinary share capital reserves. And ordinary share capital and reserves collectively is equity capital. Ordinary share capital and reserves collectively is equity capital divided by the number of issued ordinary shares. Now, one thing that you can see is that, therefore, book value per share, in this case, basically reflects approximately how much the ordinary shareholders are financing a company. Yeah. Ordinary share capital reserves is equity capital, which is owner-supplied long-term capital, the extent to which the owners of a firm are financing a company. So this approach where we value equity by the use of book values is known as the book value per share. Number two, we have price earning ratio basis. One of the income based, because I've already told you that these approaches are classified as asset based, and we have income based basis. So price earning ratio is one of the earnings basis. Price earning ratio is one of the earnings basis of equity valuation. What I know is that you guys have been going through the handout which I gave you on ratio analysis. And I believe one of the ratios you have seen in that handout is how to compute the price earning ratio. Anybody who can remember formula for finding price earning ratio equal to? Anybody who can remember? How do we find the price earning ratio? Anybody who can remember? Because I know you'll be reading the handout I gave you on ratio analysis. Price earning ratio is given by what? Price, in this case, is market price per share, and earnings is earnings per share. So in your handout, please be reading that, how to compute these ratios. So if price earning ratio is MPS divided by EPS, then it means price of a share, that is what we are establishing, is price earning ratio multiplied by earning per share. Price earning ratio multiplied by earning per share. So many times an examiner will give you the price earning ratio of the company or the industrial price earning ratio, then earning per share. Here you have to take care, because earning per share, you can use the most recent earning per share of a company. Or if you have historical figures, I think I told you, if you are given historical earnings per share, then you can work with the average. You take the average of the past earning per share times the price earning ratio should give you the price of a share. The third approach, as I told you, I want to mention a few models. The rest can go through in your handout. There is what we call capitalization of earnings. Capitalization of earnings basis. Another approach of valuing equity. Capitalization of earnings basis, where we value a share using this approach under two conditions. One, where the firm's earnings in each year, let me assume earning per share 1 is equal to earning per share year 2, so equal to earning per share year 3. And this can go on up to infinity, earning per share infinity. Maybe dividend per share year 1 is equal to dividend per share year 2, should be equal to dividend per share year 3. And this can go on up to infinity. One of the conditions under which we use the capitalization of earnings basis is where earning per shares each year are assumed to remain constant. In other words, what I'm saying here is that we don't expect a growth. There is no growth or increase in earnings. Anytime you go through a question and exam, and the examiner tells you no growth in earnings or no growth in dividends. In other words, you're informed that the earnings in each year are the same, dividends in each year are the same. And when you look at this keenly, I think in the video I shared with you, it's clear that this is more of a perpetual annuity. Is more of a perpetual annuity, where the earnings in each year, year 1, year 2, year 3, dividends in each year, year 1 and year 2, year 3 are the same, then it's more of a perpetual annuity cash flow. Now, the other conditions under which we use this model is where a firm adopts 100% payout as its dividend policy, 100% payout ratio as its dividend policy. I went through dividends in class, and I told you one of the policies adopted by firms is payout. 100% payout means that all earnings which are attributable to the owners are shared as dividends. So if that is the case, then earning per share year 1 is equal to dividend per share. Earning per share year 2 shall equal to dividend per share, and so forth and so on. At 100% payout, EPS should equal to dividends. At 100% payout, all earnings are shared as dividends. So when you see these two conditions, because many times the examiner will not tell you use capitalization of earnings. The examiner will give you a story. And if you find a story of that nature, then just know that you're required to value a share. Assuming the current price of a share is P0, then we take EPS or EPS, because these are assumed to be equal, and these are perpetual annuity. We discount that perpetual annuity at the required rate of return. We pick earning per share or dividend per share, then times the reciprocal of the discounting rate. Therefore, price of a share should equal to earning per share or dividend per share divided by the minimum required rate of return. And many times, the formula you'll find is D0 over AS percent. That D0 is a constant annual dividend per share. Constant annual dividend per share. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're informed that the firm expects the same dividend each year in perpetuity, then you pick that dividend, divide by the discounting rate, and that shall give you the price of a share. In the document that I shared with you, there's a worked out illustration again. Please check. The fourth valuation model, perhaps one of the most popular model, is the dividend growth model. This is a very popular model. Even from the examination perspective, I've seen this model is a very, very popular model. inaitwa dividend growth model. Dividend growth model, or sometimes it's referred to as the Gordon's model. The Gordon's model for dividend growth. I believe Gordon is the name of a person who came up with this model, the Gordon's model for dividend growth. Now, the Gordon's model, I don't want to derive the model because I've already derived it in the handouts that you have. But I want to explain that this model is used to value ordinary shares where we expect the firm's future dividends. Where we expect the firm's future dividends to grow at a constant rate. At a constant rate. Each year in perpetuity. So if you're informed that the firm policy is that their dividends will increase at the same rate each year in perpetuity, which growth rate can be worked out using various formulas. Like if you have been keen in my handout, I've said the growth rate is the nth root of current dividend per share over the earliest dividend per share minus 1 times 100. For those of you who have been keen with the handout that I've given you, I'm sure you have seen this. Yeah, this growth rate, sometimes we call it the historical dividend growth rate. The rate at which the firm's future dividends will increase on average per year. You take the most recent dividend per share divided by the earliest minus 1. Now, when you see a trend like this, maybe you're given the year and dividend per share figures. Sometimes examiners can even give you earnings per share, and they can give you dividend per share figures, and it tells you over the next so many years, 1 year, 2 year, 3. These are future. In a year's time from now, the earning per share of the company is 4. Dividend. Okay, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I think there's a problem with my Wi-Fi. It pushed me out of the meetings. I was demonstrating how to get the dividend growth rate. Suppose in an exam, you're given comparative information. Like now I'm saying, suppose in a year's time from now, you're told the company's earning per share is 4, dividend per share is 2. The earning per share in 2 years' time from now can go up to 4.5. Dividend per share maybe can increase to 2.2. 3 years' time, earning per share 5. Dividend per share can go up to 2.5. In 4 years' time from now, earning per share can go up to 5.6. Dividend per share 3. Something like that. One thing you're observing is that these earnings seem to be going up. Dividends seem to be going up. So more often we disregard earning per share information and we go by the dividend per share information. In the absence of dividend per share information, then we assume that earning per share is equal to dividend per share. Now, when you look at this data, you can see the dividends are going up. So we are only interested with the dividends figure. You see, these are future dividends. In a year's time, 2, 2 years' time, 2.2, 3 years' time, 3. Now, you can find the growth rate in each year. Growth rate is in percentage. So the first year, I put a growth rate. From 2 to 2.2 is what percentage increase? If you I think you'll bear with me, guys. You'll bear with me. My internet is very unstable. But I hope you're getting me now. You getting me? Are you guys getting me? Are you getting me?
Hapana.
Yes, mimi nakusikia.
Mnanipata? Je, mnanipata?
Yes,
Yeah, my internet is quite unstable, please.
nakusikia mwalimu.
Okay, so let's look at these figures. Dividend per share year 1 is 2, year 2, 2.2, year 3, 2.5, year 4, 4. Look at this trend. You can see dividends are going up. And when dividends are going up, like in this manner, then you need to value a share using the dividend growth model. Ukiangalia hapa the first year, no increase in dividend. Ndio nimeweka dash. Sasa from 2 to 2.2, dividends have increased at what rate? From 2 to 2.2 is what percentage increase? You take 2.2 minus 2 divided by 2 times 100. What is the percentage increase in dividends from this year to that year?
10.
10%, isn't it?
10.
Now from 2.2 to 2.5 is what percentage increase? Take 2.5 less 2.2 divided by 2.2 times 100 again. That year, dividend increased by at what rate? From 2 to 2.5?
$13.6.
13.6%. From 2.5 to 3 is what percentage increase? 3 minus 2.5 divided by 2.5 times 100. Hiyo itakuwa ngapi? Dividends increased at what rate?
20.
20. So which is the average growth rate now? The average growth rate in dividends, utachukua 10 plus 13.5, sorry, 13.6 plus 20 divided by 3.
Why not 4?
You cannot, now, you cannot divide by 4. Dividends have grown how many times?
Oh.
Dividends have grown how many times? Dividends have grown the first time, the second, the third, isn't it? Yeah, dividends have grown 3 times, so you cannot divide by 4. So if you divide by 3, that should equal to 10 plus 13.6 plus 20 divided by 3. To give you what?
$14.5.
Huh? What is the answer?
14.5.
Yes, that is the rate at which dividends have grown on average per year. Don't divide by 4. Dividends have been paid 4 times, but dividends have grown 3 times. Now, if you apply this formula that I gave you earlier on, we said the historical dividend growth rate, you can take the nth root of current dividend. That's the alternative. Most recent dividend over the earliest dividend minus 1 times 100. That is the second option of finding the dividend growth rate. So equal to, now n should be Thanks. Okay. I am back again. Hope you guys are there. And I hope you are getting me. I'm hoping you are getting me.
Yes.
Okay, let's try using the alternative formula. There's a lady who has asked me here why we cannot divide by 4. And I think I've emphasized on that. Please don't divide by 4, because you can see dividends have been paid 4 times, or rather will be paid 4 times, but will grow 3 times. Will grow 3 times. So you don't take those years dividends have been paid. Or let me say in short, take the number of years minus 1. So the most recent dividend is current dividend, which is 3. The earliest is 2. Most recent dividend is 3. The earliest is 2. So you take here 3 divided by 2. More importantly, that is 3 minus 1, then times 100. So here you'll take the cube root of 1.5 minus 1 times 100. Hiyo inakupatia ngapi? You take the cube root of 1.5 minus 1 times 100. Shall give you what? Dividend growth rate. Umepata ngapi your dividend growth rate?
14.5.
10.5. Na ile ya kwanza tulipata ngapi? Hii ni 14.5. Sasa hii inakuwa
14.5.
14. The same thing, eh?
14.5. 14,
Yeah,
not
so
10. Not
you
10.
can-
Yeah, 14.5.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So what we have got is the same thing, eh? What you have got is the same thing, eh? So in a situation where
Yes.
dividends are growing, you can decide to use that alternative, or you can use the alternative. But again, depending on some situations that you're given, the dividend growth rate can be given by return on equity times retention ratio. I think there's a fellow who asked me this question. Sometimes you may not have historical data like the ones we have here. You may not be given this historical data. And when you go through some question, you'll find the examiner has given you return on equity, maybe 20%. Then you multiply by retention ratio. Retention ratio is 1 minus dividend payout ratio. One minus dividend payout ratio. So 1 minus, assuming the dividend payout ratio is 50%. So 1 minus the dividend payout ratio, retention ratio is 50%. So assuming return on equity is 20% times 0.5. 1 minus 50% is 50%, which is 0.5. So if you take 20% of 0.5, you can see dividend growth rate will be 10%. So in some situations, you may be given return on equity and the retention ratio, if you multiply, or if you're given the payout ratio, then that should give you the growth rate. So in a situation where we expect dividends to grow, then price of a share today is equal to D naught, 1 plus G over KS percent minus G percent. Normally that's D1 over KS percent minus G percent. This is the dividend growth model. Eh? This is the dividend growth model. So you can find the price of a share today by taking D naught. This is the most recent dividend, 1 plus G. So dividend payable in a year's time from now, that's D1. So D naught 1 plus G is D1 divided by the minimum required rate of return by the investor. Like now in this illustration that we have done, assuming you are given this data the way it is given here, Assuming you're given this data the way it's given here, and then you are told the minimum required rate of return by investors is 20%. Minimum required rate of return by investors is 20%. You're given historical dividends. These are dividends payable over the last period of time. Let me now change it. Probably, let me assume that it makes sense. Let me assume the most recent year is 2020, maybe 2019, maybe 2018, maybe 2017. Let me assume this is historical over the last 4 years. Perhaps these are the earning per share, and those are the dividend per share over the last 4 years. So we can conclude in that case that 14.5 is the rate at which dividend grew per annum. 14.5% is the rate at which dividends grow per annum. Suppose you are informed that these are historical data, and then you are told the minimum required rate of return by investors, minimum required rate of return by investors is 24%. The minimum required rate of return by investors is 24%. And these are the historical growth rate. These are the historical dividend growth rate. So the most recent dividend is dividend payable in the year 2020, which you can see is 3. That is our D note. The growth rate, we know. The minimum required rate of return, we know. So what price are we required to establish? We are required to establish price of a share in the current year. That's the most recent year in this historical data. In this historical data, the most recent year is 2020. So you're looking for the price 2020. This has to be dividend per share in the year 2020, the most recent year. This is dividend per share in the year 2021, a year's time from now. The most recent year is 2020. A year's time from now is 2021. Therefore, with that information, we could say price of a share is equal to the most recent dividend is 3, 1 plus dividend growth rate of 14.5%. The minimum required rate of return by investors is 24% minus 14.5%. This shall give us what price? So we'll take 1.145 over 24 minus 14.5%. That becomes what? 9.5? 0.095. 24% is the minimum required rate of return by investors minus 14.5. Is that 9.5? 24 minus 14.5. So 9.5 is 0.05. That shall give us what price? Price of a share. Now, this is the minimum required rate of return by investors. So what basically I'm looking for is intrinsic value of a share. The intrinsic value. Current intrinsic value of a share. Since the discounting rate is the investor's minimum required rate of return, what I'm basically looking for is the current intrinsic value of a share. Hiyo itakuwa ngapi? What's the current intrinsic value of that share?
36.16.
6.2, roughly, yeah? Sindio? 36.2. If the shareholders' minimum required rate of return is the discounting rate, that the value establishing is current intrinsic value. Now, suppose the current market value of this share. Suppose the current market price for this share is 35. The market price in the year 2020. Would you advise a prospective investor to buy this share? Now that the intrinsic value of a share is 36.2 and the market value is 35, would you advise a prospective investor to buy this share?
No.
What's your take? Is this share overvalued or undervalued by the market?
Undervalued.
Correct. Correct. The share is undervalued.
Yes.
Yeah, if the market value of a share is less than the current intrinsic value, the share is undervalued by the market. If it was vice versa, if the market price is higher than the intrinsic value, then you could have concluded the share is overvalued. But now that the market price is 36, current intrinsic value 36.5, that share is undervalued. Therefore, advise a prospective investor to buy. You can advise a prospective investor to buy the shares of this firm. But if a share is overvalued, then you discourage prospective investors from buying the share. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing that must be very clear at this stage. You are using historical data. You see, I've changed here. I've used historical data to be able to find the price of a share in the year 2020. Now, suppose in the same company, this company that has paid those dividends over the last 4 years, suppose you are informed. Suppose the question continues, maybe the next part of the question continues, that suppose the firm's future dividends, suppose the firm's future dividends, suppose the firm's future dividends were to grow at 10% per annum for the next 3 years. Suppose the firm's future dividends were to grow at 10% per annum for the next 2 years, 5% per annum for the next 2 years. And thereafter, the dividend growth, reverts to the historical rate. Reverts to the historical rate and remains constant in perpetuity. Remains constant each year. Remain constant each year in perpetuity. I hope you guys are seeing my question. I'm continuing with the same company. Probably this is the next part of the question. Suppose the firm's future dividends are expected to grow at 10% per annum for the next 3 years. And then grow, let me say 15. Let me say 15. Let me say 12. Let me say 12. 12% per annum for the next 2 years. And thereafter, the dividend growth reverts to the historical rate. Historical rate ilikuwa ile tulipata 14.5% and remains constant each year in perpetuity. Then you are told, determine the current intrinsic value of a share. Sijui kama tunaelewana? Tunaelewana wenzangu? Tunaelewana
Yes.
Je, tunaelewana?
Kabisa.
There are two dimensions here. I've worked out this price of a share using historical what? Using historical dividends. Umeona hivyo? Now, here we are working out the same question. I'm answering the same question that I've done, but using future figures. You see how I've changed the dimension of the question? I've changed the dimension of the question. You are told dividends were to grow. So you have the year, then you bring in future dividends. What is the question saying? What is the question saying? Suppose the firm's future dividends were to grow at the rate of 10% per annum for the next 3 years. Next 3 years are which ones? The most recent year is 2020. Remember, these are continuation. Eh? Ladies and gentlemen, please let's read from the same page. These are continuation. Mukiangalia, this historical data of this company, the most recent year is which year? That's the current year. We are required to establish price in the current year. But now, if dividend were to grow, you see the most recent dividend in the year 2020 was 3. So in a year's time from now, class, eh? Oh. So a year's time from now is the year 2021. Munaona hivyo, eh? Dividends were to grow at the rate of 10% for the next 3 years. So from 2020, that is 2021, 2022, and 2023. Is it possible for you to find dividends for those years from 3? The dividend for the year 2021, if it were to increase by 10%, your dividend inakuwa ngapi? $3.3. Now remember, I've said 10% per annum for the next 3 years. Eh? So 2022, dividend inakuwa ngapi? 3.31 plus 10%. Eh? So dividend for the year 2022?
3.6.
3.6.
3.6.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's something back on the test here. Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen, just a minute. Eh? In the year 2023, dividend payable itakuwa ngapi? Unachukua 3.6, 1 plus 10%. Inakuwa ngapi hiyo?
3.96.
3.96. 3.96. This is what I'm saying here. Suppose the firm's future dividend were to grow at 10% per annum for the next 3 years. That is 2021, 2022, 2023. Okay, now 2024, what has happened to the dividend now? For the next 2 years, dividend will grow at what rate? It will grow at what rate? For the next 2 years, dividend will grow at what rate? Did I say 12%? %12 for the next 2 years, eh? I think that's what I said. 12% for the next 2 years, and thereafter revert to the historical rate. Eh? So the year 2024 and 25, what are the dividends payable? The year 2024, 25. 3.96, 1 plus 12%. Eh? Itakuwa ngapi? itakuwa ngapi?
4.4.
4.4. 4.4.
Yes.
Haya, I've said 12% for the next 2 years. So 4.4, 1 plus 12%.
4.96.
4.96. Now, subsequently, from the year 2026 up to infinity, I've said the growth rate reverts back to the historical. Reverts back to the historical. Historical growth rate tulipata ilikuwa ngapi? Do you guys remember the historical growth rate? 14.5%. Okay? Per annum in perpetuity. Sawa sawa?
Yeah.
You remember that? This question says, thereafter, revert to the historical growth rate and remains constant each year in perpetuity. That means from the year 2026 up to infinity, the growth rate stabilizes at 14.5% per annum. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Now, the question that we are asking ourselves, now please take note, here is a trick. From 2026 up to infinity, the growth rate stabilizes at 14.5 per annum in perpetuity. Now, one of the conditions in which we apply the dividend growth model is where dividends are expected to grow at the same rate each year in perpetuity. So this brings in now the use of the dividend growth model to value a share. To value a share when? Start, please take note here. Start of the year 2026 or end of the year 2025. Wezangu tafadhali, let's be very keen here. There's a trick here. This is where most students go wrong. So from the year 2026 up to infinity, the growth rate stabilizes at 14.5% per annum in perpetuity. I told you that one of the conditions under which we use the dividend growth model is where dividends are expected to grow at the same rate each year in perpetuity. So, because that condition exists, now I'll say, let me look for P naught, which is equal to D naught, 1 plus G over KS percent minus G. Are we together, for example? Are we together there? Okay. Now, the P naught we are establishing is price either beginning of the year 2026 or end of the year 2025. The P naught is price start of the year 2026 or end of the year 2025. That should equal to D naught is the most recent dividend. So that is 4.96. 1 plus the growth rate is the historical 14.5. Or in an exam situation, examiner can give you a growth rate divided by the minimum required rate of return, 24%, minus historical growth rate of 14.5%. So you pick the most recent dividend here, 4.96, which is expected to grow at 14.5%. The minimum required rate of return, we assume 24% minus 14.5%. Hiyo inakupatia ngapi? That share price. Afadhali hapa mchunge sana Mchunge sana These questions I'm discussing are very common in exam Hata mkiangalia past paper zenu, you'll find them there. That share price is what? So you'll say 4.96, 1.145 over 0.095. Hiyo inakuwa ngapi? That share price is equal to
59.8.
59.8, eh? Kalamu yangu inataka charge kidogo. Let's give it some 2-3 minutes. Is that true? Is the price you have found 59.8?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Now that price is price which period? I've said it is price either at the beginning of the year 2026 or end of the year what? 2025. Eh? So that means if you are a prospective investor in this company and you're thinking of buying a share of that company now, somebody is telling you that if you buy a share of that company now, in a year's time from now, that share promises you a dividend of 3.3. In 2 years' time from now, that share will give you a return of 3.6. In 3 years' time from now, that share will give you a return of 3.96. In 4 years' time from now, you'll get a return of 4.4%. In 5 years' time from now, you'll get a return of 4.96. And if you decide to sell your share at the end of the year 2025, will give you 58.2. And if you decide to sell your share at the start of the year 2026, still the same price. So if you sell your share at the end of the year 2025 or start of the year 2026, that share will give you the same price. Hiyo price mmesema ni ngapi? 58 point what? Hiyo price mmesema ni ngapi?
59.8.
59.8, eh?
59.8.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
Now, what is the question asking? The question is asking for the current. Angalia hapa. Determine the current intrinsic value of a share. That is value of a share when? In the most recent year, the year 2020. That is your time zero. Now, 3.3 is dividend in a year's time. All these are the future cash flows, so we need to discount each of these. Please take note that the current price of a share is the total present value of expected future cash flows. The 3.3, the 3.6, 3.96 are all future cash flows. We need to discount all these future cash flows to be able to establish their total present value. So, my pen is not writing, here in a charge. So we discount all these using 24%. The minimum required rate of return by investors is 24%. Could you please discount all this at 24%? Kalamu yangu ichaji kidogo, eh? Okay? You understand what I'm saying, eh? 3.3, 3.6, 3.96, 4.4, 4.96, and 58.2 are all future cash flows. Can you find their total present value using a discounting rate of 24%? Investors' minimum required rate of return. 5 minutes, eh? Yes? Yes?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
In the notes that you gave in the handout, hapo kwenye umesema the first 3 years ni 10%, and then the next 2 years hapo ulitumia 16%.
No, I'm not answering that question in the past, but this is a different one. Eh? I hope you're aware.
Yes,
of
it's
that.
a different. Yes, I'm aware of that, but hapo penye ulisema the next 2 years utatumia 16%. It's not how you've done as a board.
What did I use?
You did for the next year maybe 2024.
Is it in my handout? Is the question in my handout?
Yes.
Can you finish this?
Yes.
I'll share that handout and it will show me.
Okay.
I'll show that handout and it will show me. First, find the total present value of this.
Yeah.
Can you find the total present value of this at 24%? I'll share the handout and it will show me.
Unajua kifaru? Ni mbali sana. Na hapo kidogo kifaru. Ni client anasema kwa hapo. Hebu mpigie simu bwana. Hebu mpigie simu mwambie. No, akikupatia. Labda fika constant. Kuja pia force. Kuja kuonyesha. Hadi kama mwenyewe. Lazima anamwambia mwenyewe kwa kudish. Hiyo ni kusema transisifikiri ya chemistry. Then airbox capacity and banks na zaidi ya hiyo. Sasa kama hapo kuna link ya tunaweza hapa.
Asante bwana. Haya. Okay. Tunaweza endelea? Tunaweza endelea sasa eh? Kabla wacha tuendelee kabla hiyo vitu zenu ziishe. Your bundles. Now, have you discounted? I don't know why my pen is not right. Kalamu yangu imekataa kuandika, sasa nitafanya namna gani? Sasa hiyo kalamu yangu haiandiki. Sasa sijui kama ni charge ama ni nini. Thinking. Have you realized it is discounted at 24%? Have you discounted those cash flows? 24 under year one, E 3.3, you discount it.